everyone. Today I'm very excited. I actually know when to get on because for some reason every day at 2 p.m. I get a Words with Friends notification that like blocks the top part of my screen. So Words with Friends comes in and here I am and I get on. Today is sort of cool, doing something we haven't really done yet, which is something that is just my favorite part of the job basically, which is product creation, product testing, trying out new things. If you've ever looked at the items in the pastry shop, it's always, well, it's not always, but I like to take something maybe classic, something you haven't, you love, but maybe it needs to be reinvented or something, or we're just looking to have some fun. And so this week for the polls, first poll were some classic American desserts. Second poll, how can we remake them into something new? And you guys picked Boston cream pie, which I love, if you're not familiar with Boston cream pie. And hello everyone who's joining. Today, Boston cream pie blondies. Because you guys picked bars and brownies. And so classic Boston cream pie, it's a yellow cake with vanilla custard, a pastry cream in the middle, and then a chocolate drizzle on top. So we're doing something similar and very fun, and I'm very excited about it. Blondie base, gonna throw some chocolate chips in there. I'm trying to make sure we keep chocolate as a good portion of it too. And then we're doing something maybe brand new, called a German buttercream. And I was trying to think of what can we do that takes that pastry cream in the center of Boston cream pie, but make it new, make it something different. And so we're gonna do a German buttercream, which is a custard buttercream. It is a pastry cream beaten into butter and then sweetened a little bit more and flavored. And you can actually, if you get this German buttercream down, you can flavor it a bunch of different ways. You can use it for cake toppings, and it's not very sweet at all. If anything, it is rich and it is buttery, and it is very open to being flavored. Oh good, oh my gosh, you guys, you're so great. I'm glad it sounds good to you. The order in which we're gonna do things, if you were here last week, you'll remember that nothing needed to cool down. This week, it's the opposite. So we're actually gonna start by making the custard because we're gonna need that to cool before we can add it to our buttercream. So while our custard cools, we'll make our blondies, pop them into the oven. Hopefully those will be done sort of at the same time, and then we'll get our butter beaten for the buttercream, get that pastry cream back out, throw it in, whip it till it's beautiful and light. That buttercream is going to go on top of our blondies, and then we have a chocolate ganache on top, which my suggestion was bittersweet chocolate for that. Whatever chocolate you have on hand is fine. Whatever chocolate you want to put into the blondies. If you want to put chocolate in, I mean, make this your own. You don't have to make it a vanilla German buttercream in the middle. You can flavor it however you want. If you want to do coffee buttercream and throw Boston cream pie out the window, do it. Right? That's what this is about. This is supposed to be fun. So, oven's on for at 350, and that is for our blondie. We're just getting it warmed up. I'm not sure if we'll be able to actually assemble in the hour, but certainly your pieces will be ready, and then you'll be able to assemble it on your own. And I do have a finished product to show you at the end. So let's get started. We're starting with our pastry cream with our custard. Now, if you've been around the block with me before, you should realize how good you're getting at some of these things. And so this will be very familiar. First off, anything below this line, this is going to come in later. That's our buttercream portion. So this is our custard portion up here. We're going to warm up our milk and vanilla, and we're going to whisk together the remainder of our ingredients, and then we're going to temper them and put it all back in the pot and thicken. Familiar? Even last week, we did something very similar to this, so get excited. You guys are masters at custards. If you did cream pie, it might have been week 4. I can't remember now. And we did curd last week. Very similar, we're making a custard. So get your milk and your vanilla extract, and this part, the divided portion, that's actually going to be flavored down here. So you're going to get 2 cups of whole milk and 1 teaspoon of vanilla in a saucepan, and we're going to steam it up. We just want our milk to rise in temperature a bit. So over medium heat works, especially because I think your burners are probably off. So 2 cups of milk go in, and then that teaspoon of vanilla. I really wasn't sure what you guys were gonna pick. And I love Boston cream pie, so I'm very excited about today. But everything, I like everything I put up there. Okay, just peeking in. We've got The Blondies are not, great question. Someone asked, are the Blondies filled with cream? They're not. It's a layered bar. So it's going to be a Blondie base, then the German buttercream, and then a chocolate ganache on top. And it's got these beautiful clear layers. I think you're going to like it. Mind you, you can make this your own, especially after you get the hang of it today. If you wanted to do a buttercream layer in the middle, which is typical of Boston cream pie, it comes in the middle, you can absolutely do that. I'd recommend baking 2 separate batches of Blondies and then allowing that German buttercream to sit in the fridge to firm up so that you can just layer that second Blondie on top and then top with a ganache. But since that was so intensive, I decided we'll just do 3 layers for today. But keep that in mind. I think that's a great idea. If you've got your vanilla and your milk on the stove, you can just give it a whisk, and you can use that same whisk. Give it a whisk to combine, and again, we're just warming that up. We want it to be not boiling, but just under steaming. Now in a separate bowl, and you want this bowl to be big enough because we're going to temper the egg yolks. So you want this bowl to be large enough to hold maybe half of your milk mixture, 1 cup of milk. And you're going to put 2 egg yolks, your granulated sugar, and your cornstarch in a bowl and whisk them together in a separate bowl, not the one on the heat. Now when you're adding sugar to egg yolks, you have to whisk rather quickly because the sugar can burn the egg yolks and turn them hard, if you've ever experienced that. If something has ever gone wrong in your life, that might be it. I've certainly burned my fair share of egg yolks. And I would recommend, I'm using a fairly flexible whisk. I would recommend you don't use a fairly flexible whisk. I'm making a mess over here. There we go. I'm switching out to a wire whisk. Just if you are switching whisks, beware the burning of the egg yolks. And what's the worst that can happen? You have to start with some new egg yolks. Not a problem. And this mixture will be thick. It'll be very thick. And that's okay. That's absolutely normal. That's what we're looking for. Before the milk reaches full heat, we're going to thin it out just a little bit. There we go. Just cleaning up my mess. And if you're having trouble whisking, you can add just a little bit of the milk in now. That's okay. It doesn't all have to be hot. I'm going to add maybe 1/4 cup to thin it out. And don't forget your cornstarch will go in here as well. So right now I added just a little bit of milk, thinned it out, and now I'm going to add my cornstarch. And it's 1/4 cup. Let me make sure if anyone has any questions, always just holler. 1/4 cup, if your cornstarch container is small, that's 4 tablespoons. And to recap, for anyone that might just be joining us, we've got our milk, and now it's a little less milk because I thinned this out, on the stove with vanilla extract. And then in this, we have a splash of our milk and cornstarch, granulated sugar, and our eggs. Something you can get ready in case you end up with, we are just warming the milk. We don't want the milk to boil at all or bubble over. And that is just my oven coming up to temp. What you might want to get ready, if you have a sheet pan, we want to cool this down as fast as possible. So I'm actually going to put my pastry cream on this sheet pan. I'm going to strain it first just in case any of the eggs get scrambled or cooked once we put it back on the heat. But if you have something large and flat, that's the best way to go for this because we want it to cool as fast as possible. All right, see how my milk is steaming? I think you can see that. The oven temp is at 350 for anyone just popping in. All right, my milk is steaming, and that means I'm gonna start tempering. So I'm gonna pour a little bit of this at a time, and it won't be all of it in total. A little bit at a time into this egg mixture, just to bring it up to temperature so the eggs don't cook. And everyone gets cooked eggs. It's not a big deal if you do. That's what our strainer is for. If you have a fine mesh strainer, even better if you're nervous about cooking your eggs. And I've done 2 splashes of my milk and vanilla. And I'm going to do 1 more, and then it goes right back on the heat. And we're going to cook it till it's thick. Now you want to be whisking constantly through all of this. All right. All right, I'm going to get this bowl out of the way. And we are on our way to our custard. I would recommend, if you have a fine mesh strainer over your sheet pan, I wouldn't recommend you use parchment. I think it ends up just becoming a total pain on the other end. So I would put this straight onto whatever vessel you're putting it in to put into the fridge. And again, you're looking for sort of a larger vessel because we want to bring this down to room temperature as fast as we can. And this, we're just whisking until it gets thick. Let me pop in and see if anyone has questions. Oh my gosh, of course. It will thicken as it cools. Great question. This mixture is going to thicken as it cools, and it's going to set. And so we will even loosen it up a bit with a whisk after it journeys into the fridge and comes out again. We're going to loosen it up a bit to add it to the butter for our buttercream. Oh my gosh, mine thickened so quickly. I'm going to pop over so you can see what's happening. And again, if anyone's like brand new, fresh, this is a custard going into our German buttercream. And that German buttercream is replacing your vanilla custard in a Boston cream pie. All right. And mine is bubbling and thick, and you can see it steaming. I've got the kitchen window open already. Okay. And your thickening agent today, eggs do thicken, but it's that cornstarch, that 1/4 cup of cornstarch. Alrighty. My goodness, I made a mess with those eggs. I needed a bigger bowl even. Alright, this looks good. So mine is, I'm going to turn off the heat. Mine is nice and thick. Ooh, and it smells wonderful. Now you'll notice, maybe unlike other custards, maybe this is on your mind. At this point is when we typically would add in some butter. We're not going to add in any butter to this because we've got a lot of butter coming later. All right, so I'm just going to pour this entire thing through my fine mesh strainer and directly onto a sheet tray. You don't have a sheet tray, you don't have a fine mesh strainer, no problem. There we go. Just a large dish, whatever you might have. Gosh, can you believe how fast we made this custard? And you know, if you're making, you know, like fruit tarts, and you're looking to fill it with a pastry cream or custard, this is not very strongly flavored because it's just the base for the buttercream, which we're going to flavor later. So I wouldn't use this recipe as a base custard recipe. I'd go for something even maybe a little richer. Okay, definitely one that adds butter at the end. You are done with that pan. And I'm just going to strain out any little cooked egg bits, and I can see I have some. Let me check and make sure no one's asking questions. I know, no added butter. I know, you guys. It's a deal. If you're new here, Beurre, the name of this pastry shop, Beurre pastry shop, it means butter in French. We're old friends, Butter and I. All right. And now this, again, if you were around for cream pie, you were around last week for citrus meringue pie, this will form a skin as it cools. So get some plastic wrap, and you're gonna lay it directly on top. You don't need to wrap the whole pan, but you do wanna cover every inch of your custard. Just press your hands on it, and it will be warm. Plastic wrap can actually endure this, though. I don't remember the hottest temperature plastic wrap can withstand. It's up there, but you can't use it in the oven, for instance. Okay, I'm gonna press it so it spreads a little more too. This goes right into the fridge. We're looking for it to cool down. That's our whole goal. Okay, in you go. And out come the stand mixers. Out come some cleaning supplies first, I think. Those eggs, huh? I really went for it. Okay, let me just get around the stove top here. And so stand mixer, you can do this by hand. You can do this with a You can do this with a spoon. It'll just take a little longer. You can do it with a hand mixer too. It'll be quickest with a stand mixer, but it's actually not necessary. We're doing Blondies. I'm stoked about this. I love Blondies. I'm not the biggest chocolate person, so Blondie's a good alternative for me. And you'll need a paddle attachment. Whoa! Hello, guys. I'm so eager. So Blondies, hopefully you did get your butter out. If not, it's not the end of the world. It'll be fine, and it'll just take a little bit longer. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Someone's lost. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Let's go through everything that's happened so far. Custard. We heated up, and this is good for anyone else who's just joining. We heated up our milk and vanilla extract, and then in a separate bowl whisked together our cornstarch, our egg yolks, and our granulated sugar, and we added a little bit of the milk to that just to thin it out. And then we tempered the egg yolk mixture just by pouring some of the warmed milk in, bringing it up to temperature, dumped it all back into the saucepan, and then cooked until it was thick. And that is our custard. And then just dumped that custard, fine mesh strainer. If you have it, great. If you don't, not a problem. I just want it to cool as fast as possible. That's what we're looking for. And we tossed it into the fridge. So I made it as thin as possible, a plastic wrap on top just to keep it from forming a skin, and then I threw it in the fridge. And now I do want to say Blondie's super duper easy. Creaming method for anyone that wants the jargon. We're going to cream our butter and our sugar together. And then, add the eggs and vanilla in, and then add the dry ingredients. So Blondie's not too bad. If you don't have softened butter, don't freak out. It's going to be fine. I pulled mine out. I would always recommend if you want soft butter, pull it out hours in advance. Like this, 1 hour, it doesn't really soften. Mine's so soft I can just dump the whole thing in. But if yours is hard, feel free to cube it. That'll be helpful. And then add in your sugar, and we're going to turn on the stand mixer and cream this puppy. And you will need, I know this has never happened before, we're actually going to need to take a cleaning break to get our bowl set for our buttercream. For every week it's something new, isn't it? So our brown sugar is going to go in with our 3/4 cup of butter, 1.5 cups brown sugar. And I have, I don't know why this happened, but I have like a mixture of brown sugar in my brown sugar container at home. So I'm going to do it's going to be a little bit of dark, a little bit of light. It's actually very pretty in the container, but it's a little odd in practice. And we're turning this on. Can I just show this to you for a second? Look at that. What am I doing? I don't know. But it's delicious. It keeps me on my toes. Keeps things tasting interesting. All right, let me get my granulated sugar out of the way and we'll get rocking. Butter and sugar in the stand mixer. And while that's going, you can put your eggs and your vanilla into a container. And you're going to use 1 egg yolk, 1 whole egg. Now, for all of these egg whites you're getting today, don't throw them out. Guys, give them a chance. There's so many things you can do with egg whites. Check out Bake Along 16, peanut butter Swiss meringue buttercream. You can make meringue, all sorts of different types of meringue. And we've done quite a few meringues over the past 18 weeks. Okay, I'm getting my eggs and my vanilla in a separate container, and then get your dry ingredients in a separate container too. Done with the brown sugar. And let me know if you have any questions. You guys have asked some super great questions today. Our flour, 1.5 cups, and 3/4 of a teaspoon salt are going to go in a bowl, and those chocolate chips we're going to save until the end. What we're looking for with this creaming method here is the sugar and butter will become very light and fluffy. If it's cold and sticky, it's not ready yet. Now, if you only have granulated sugar, if you only have dark brown, if you only have a mix, go for it. Do it all. Do whatever you can. this recipe will work no matter your sugar. Absolutely, I can review again. The custard will, I almost will say, it won't thicken past this point. It'll leave a whisk mark when you're whisking your custard in terms of how thick it should be. And it'll be bubbling at that point. It'll definitely be bubbling a lot. After your custard is thickened, you're going to pour it onto whatever larger surface you have and put plastic wrap directly on top so it doesn't form a skin, and that goes right into the fridge. And then for the blondies, we're just creaming our butter and our sugar, putting our eggs and vanilla in one container, and then putting our flour and salt in another. So just separating out the wet and the dry, and then the sugar and the butter are already in. And don't forget, oh, guys, doing all sorts of things with my mixer today. Don't forget to scrape the sides. This is already super light and fluffy. I started with pretty softened butter though, because I did, gosh, I might have pulled it out 3 hours early, which I think is always a fine way to go about it. All right, so I'm just scraping it, making sure any little bits on the bottom get incorporated, and I'll give this another minute or two in the mixer. But if you want to see what my mixture looks like right now, it's very light and fluffy. I'm going to get up there. So let's just a little bit longer, and you can whisk together your flour and salt. You don't actually have to, it's not a huge deal. And get a pan ready. So this recipe, I made it for a 9 by 13 inch pan. You can make it in any pan. Just know if you go much smaller than this, it might not fit. It definitely won't rise past it, but it might be a little too thick. So you can maybe bake it in 2 separate smaller pans, whatever you're feeling. And in terms of the buttercream, the ganache, the quantity on top is up to you. So you can always just save the leftovers and make a second batch or whichever. If you wanted a different flavor custard, you should incorporate it at the end, typically. So for instance, I like peanut butter custard. You'd incorporate that at the end. Melted chocolate would come in at the end. If you wanted to make a different chocolate custard, you can incorporate cocoa powder with the dry ingredients into the egg yolks. But typically extracts, mix-ins, and most flavorings will go in after it's cooked, along with the butter at the end. So you put the butter in, you let that melt, and then mix it in. If you want a different flavored custard for this, and you weren't adding the butter, you just add it after you've taken it off the heat. Great question. And so for this pan, I have parchment. So one, spray the whole thing if you don't have parchment. I just do the sides where my parchment won't hit. And then I am using, and I don't know, I'm using a half sheet parchment. Actually fits perfectly in a 9 by 13 inch pan. So that afterwards, you can literally pull it out of the pan by the sides of the parchment, and then you can cut it outside of the pan as well. Mind you, I also have magnets that I'll be using just because this is what I have, and I'm going to use magnets to keep the parchment on the sides down. Whatever you're doing, prepare your pan by greasing it or using parchment, whatever you have. Now let's give this a look. It's perfect. Can you see how, oh my goodness, light and fluffy this is? Get in there, you. And the next step, we're going to add in our egg yolks one at a time, which won't take very long. And then we'll add in our dry ingredients a little bit at a time. And after that, we'll do our chocolate chips if you want. Totally dealer's choice. You do not have to add in chocolate chips. And this blondie recipe, you can double it. You can add in any mix-ins you want, and you can just make blondies. I would double it though. This is going to make a thin blondie because it's just supposed to be our bottom layer, mimicking our vanilla cake in Boston cream pie. All right, my eggs are in. I'm going to get a spoon, just let it incorporate fully, and then we're going to start spooning in our dry ingredients. Hopefully not making too much of a mess. Now let me know, again, if you have any other questions. I have such great questions. I didn't even consider flavoring your pastry cream before adding it to the buttercream. And if you really want to just pow with flavor, that's a great way to do it. Add peanut butter after it's cooked, and then add peanut butter again for the buttercream. Killer peanut butter German buttercream. Oh my gosh. All right. So again, we've got all of our ingredients are now in, except for our salt and our all-purpose flour. That's what we're putting in right now. after all of your flour is in, I recommend scrape it down. You're gonna have flour on the sides, no biggie. Just make sure the flour gets fully incorporated because we're gonna add our chocolate chips next. Chocolate chips, what flavor, totally up to you. If you like it sweeter, you could go full milk. You could go white. That's not quite Boston cream pie, but I mean, this is your Boston cream pie blondie. So I'm gonna go semi-sweet because that's what I have. And I think I have enough bittersweet for the ganache, but just in case I don't, I'm gonna go semi-sweet now. Now, my recommendation was half a cup of chocolate chips. You don't have to even use chocolate chips. You can do whatever you want. I'm just gonna go for half a cup semi-sweet. That's my plan. And you can add those while the mixer is running. You don't have to fold it in unless you want to be super delicate about it. And I suppose I don't. Is that what I'm saying? All right. Perfect. You can hear it beating. And you do just want to mix that until it's incorporated because it will, I mean, you'll notice it when you're cleaning your bowl. You're going to have these chocolate chip streaks on the sides, just meaning it beat it into the side of the bowl and left a bruise there. Left a chocolate bruise. All right. Get all this goodness off your paddle attachment. Don't you dare put this in the sink. And these blondies, it is just a half batch. It's just a base of our full bar. They sort of are bars, but because it's a blondie base, I called them blondies. These are not going to cook very long, and probably the only way you could really sort of mess with this recipe is overcooking the blondies. I think undercooked in this situation is better, a little bit, of course. Edibly undercooked is better than hard and overcooked, because you want to be able to cut through this. All right, stand mixer and our prepared pan. If you have an offset, which I hope you all do after 18 weeks with me, you can use that to spread. And if you want to invest in magnets, I highly recommend them. Look at that, just keeps our parchment out of the way. And dump it in and spread it evenly in the bottom. And we're gonna check this, I'm gonna flip it at 7 minutes with the hope that it'll be done in 15 total. So I'm gonna turn it around halfway at 7. And we can check on them. We can say, oh, those are completely raw. It's actually gonna take 20 minutes. Or, oh, they're cooked in 7. Better pull it now. We're not par baking these is what you need to know. These should be fully baked. All right. Just spread it evenly in your pan. It will rise a little bit because we spent time beating air into it, but there's no leavening agent if you noticed. And so it's not gonna rise very much at all. And we're gonna construct the entire blondie in this pan after the blondie has cooled. How are we doing out there? Are we doing okay? Did I miss anything? This will make, depending on how you cut it, and how I always cut 9 by 13 inch pans, it'll make 18 bars. You can cut them smaller and make 24. These do keep really well in the fridge. They should be absolutely fine in the freezer. I have to admit, I haven't tried it. I don't think I've frozen German buttercream before, but it should be fine. You can freeze all types of buttercream, actually. Yeah, so if you did bake along 16 and you have leftover peanut butter or Swiss meringue buttercream, toss that in the freezer and save it because you can use it again. And I would recommend having the recipe if you're going to use something like a 9 by 9, 10 by 10 pan. All right, 7 minutes. And we're going to take a cleaning break. Let's get our bowls cleaned so we can start on the buttercream. What can I tell you about? Oh my gosh, I know what I've been wanting to talk about while I clean my bowl here. And you're going to need the paddle and the whisk attachment for the next set, just so you know. If you're not a subscriber, which guys, subscribe right now. Because there is not a box, I mean, also subscribe for a Beurre box right now because those, you have until Tuesday to subscribe to get the August box. And I'm so excited about this box, I can't even tell you, and I really can't tell you because it's always a surprise. But the theme for this box is very fun and dear to my heart, and I'm stoked about it. But if you're not an email subscriber, no purchase necessary. It's just information. You get information, and I feel like I send out now like 2 a month maybe. when I have something to say. And this, tomorrow, this week, new product is coming out that I think I've waited months to release, like actual months. So I'm really excited to finally release them. I think it's the perfect time. I can't believe August is around the corner. That's insane. But absolutely, beurrepastryshop.com/contact. You can get on the subscription email list and hear about updates when they come out. For instance, I email every time the seasonal products come out 4 times a year. Anytime a new product comes out, I send out an email. It's been a long time, but if we are doing a pop-up, something live, I email about it. Something where I sell in person instead of online, but that really hasn't happened in a long time now. All right, almost got my bowl clean. And for this, German buttercream, 2 cups of butter. That's 4 sticks of butter. It's worth every stick, trust me, and it's worth, if you end up with leftovers, it's worth the leftovers too. You could even make this, divide it in half, flavor separately. So keep that in mind. All buttercreams are like that. You don't have to make, you can make a huge base batch of, like the Swiss cream from week 16, and then split it up and make 2 different flavors. And that way you don't have to, especially with something like that, where it takes a bit of time and effort, and you're whipping egg whites, and, just giving the old stand mixer a little cleaning love. So subscribe if you haven't, because this new product, so excited about it. I've tried to keep it close to the vest for months. I feel like, was it before quarantine? Oh my gosh, it's been so long. Okay, stand mixer's back. What we're doing now is we're going to just beat butter. We want to beat it into submission. We want it to be light and fluffy. If yours is soft like mine might be soft enough to, I almost never recommend this, but you can't, I'll cut it in half. Always cube your butter, before you throw it in. When it's this soft though, when you've really done a good job and been patient and left it out, sometimes you can make larger cubes, which is what I'm going. I'm literally cutting this into sticks and throwing it in. Okay. 4 sticks, 2 cups of butter. What is happening? And we beat it till it's light and fluffy. And in the meantime, we can test our custard, see if it's cool enough. If it's not, maybe we're going to throw it in the freezer for not very long. Okay, so get this beating. You're just beating butter. That's what's happening. If anyone has any more questions, let me know. Oh, it's so close. All we're trying to do, is bring this down to room temperature faster. I am going to throw it into the, just a little bit warm still. I suspect you're in the same boat as me if you're on my timing. So I'm going to throw it into the freezer for just a little bit. If I can fit it, I didn't think about that. Hello. Don't worry, guys. Everything's going to be fine. Perfect. It closed. Okay, now, so after we do this, I'm going to tell you about the next part of our process, which we're doing down here. So we've got 2 cups of unsalted butter beating. If you're using salted butter, just omit the salt at the bottom. Don't even worry about it. And then we're going to flavor it. So because this is Boston cream pie, I'm just doing 1 tablespoon of vanilla into this mixture after it's beaten together. But you can do whatever you'd like, and I want you to know this powdered sugar is necessary. Well, oh, yes, are we doing the paddle attachment for the butter? Very good, yes. We're starting with the paddle attachment for just beating the butter and aerating it a little bit, and then we're going to end with the whisk to really whip it up. Great question. The reason we're doing the paddle now is I think it combines better, and we're going to be taking our custard and combining it into the butter. I started on the whisk when I first made this, and I first made it for you guys. You guys selected everything. And it wasn't combining the way I wanted it to, so we're going to start with this, and then we're going to whip it up into just the most beautiful buttercream you've ever seen. Or the most beautiful German buttercream you've ever seen, possibly. So the 1/4 cup of powdered sugar It's not necessary, but what you have to remember is the only sweetener we have right now is this 2/3 cup of granulated sugar, and we've got quite a bit going on. There's a lot of butter, there's a lot of milk, and so it's actually not very sweet at all. So my recommendation is, if you're nervous about a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar, taste it. Taste it after we've combined all the custard in, and then see if you want it sweeter. Because if you don't, it's good for you to know that before you start flavoring it at all. Just a thought. After we add in the custard again is when we're actually going to flavor this guy. So you've got time. You've really got time to decide. And if you don't have powdered sugar, you can use granulated, but you are going to want to whip it until it's not grainy anymore. 15 seconds on the Blondies. I'm stopping it right now. And I'm going to check them out. Okay, I'll show you halfway. Perfect. We're doing fine. Halfway, still very much raw, still shiny, but the edges are cooking. So turn it around and pop it back in. This time I'm going to go for 8 minutes. In the meantime, scrape down your butter and make sure it's all getting incorporated and that you don't have any little bit. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Can you see how just wonderfully whipped this is right now? And it's not really whipped. Good point for asking if I'm using a whisk attachment. It's more beaten until it's light and fluffy. Just when you just really think about that and take it apart. Okay, get it all off of here, off your paddle. There we go. Okay, back to beating. Got a little, I see I was waiting for it. Got just this little bit. There we go. Get in there, you. Okay. There we go. And if you want to turn this up, or if you don't, if you have a mixer that doesn't quite do it on the lowest setting, turn it up. You can't whip too much. And if anyone has questions, let me know. Though we're making this batch quantity of German buttercream, when you're putting it on, you can determine if you want more or less. So even though you're making this right now, it doesn't mean you have to use all of it. The only thing that's cooked in this, well, we have a lot of cooking going on actually. The only thing that went into the oven is the Blondie, and then the rest is cooked in its own way separately. And I have, great question, an electric oven. The gas oven I use for work works much quicker. So just know that. You're going to want to check your Blondies along the way. They will be golden brown on top. They won't be shiny. And I would not rely on the toothpick test for these Blondies. For some reason, a toothpick always comes out clean, no matter what. So I would do it based on the fact that it's golden brown on top, and when you touch it lightly, it doesn't just sink. Your fingers don't sink into it. Great question. So yours might be done before mine. I still have 6 more minutes on the clock. Speaking of which, I should check our cream and see what we're doing. Yes, okay. Woo! Okay, so mine is, if anything, the center might be the only part that is still a little bit warm to touch right here. So what we were going to do anyways is we're going to whisk it. You can whisk it right on this pan. Gently take your plastic wrap off. And then when we whisk it, it's all going to come down to temperature together. All right, so grab your 100th whisk for the day. And I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm literally going to just do this. I want to loosen it back up. There we go. Oh, it smells good. It smells like vanilla custard. Get every little bit in there. And then just make sure, and my pan's cold too, it's helping bring it down. All right. And then grab a spoon, any spoon. And this is, if you did the Swiss meringue buttercream, similar when you added the butter in Swiss meringue buttercream. So I'm going to just add a spoon. I'm going to test it. Perfect. It's room temperature, which is what we want. And you're going to add this bit by bit, just a little bit at a time. Just like adding butter to Swiss meringue buttercream. My spoon might not actually be big enough. Hold on. I'm going to use my third measuring cup to do a better job. Okay. Just bit by bit. That's what's happening. If anyone has questions. And if yours is still hot, that's okay. You can leave it in. You can leave it in long. You don't have to do this part with me at this very moment. We're actually just going to throw things in the stand mixer and then whip it. So you won't fall far behind at all. And if you aren't doing this with me, trust me, you're going to be fine. And you're looking for it to incorporate along the way. If you do have yours in the freezer, total minutes in the oven, great question. 15 to 20. I'm going to check it in 4 minutes. That'll be 15 minutes for me, and we'll see. I did make this in 2 different types of ovens, and this is my first time doing this in an electric oven. Isn't this the craziest buttercream you've ever heard of? I have not made Russian buttercream before, but I'm looking forward to making that someday soon, which is sweetened condensed milk whipped into butter versus custard whipped into butter versus butter whipped into meringue, which is all of the meringue buttercreams, versus powdered sugar whipped into butter, which is an American buttercream. And it tends to be the sweetest type. So if you really don't like sweet buttercreams, German buttercream is your thing. If you're here for the butter of the buttercream. And again, I don't think I am just, someone's asking what am I putting in here, and I think, if that's what you're asking, I am putting our custard in, bit by bit. That custard that we made in the beginning, after it cooled off, I gave it a whisk just to loosen it up, and now I'm just adding, bit by bit, I'm adding the custard in, and that is what makes a German buttercream, or a custard buttercream, it's sometimes called. And I have 2 more minutes until I hit 15 minutes on my Blondies. Oh yes, that's what I was going to say. I think the Blondie probably won't cool down enough for us to assemble. I'm actually pleased that my custard cooled down enough to beat it in. But I will show you a finished product. And you can make this your own. Go for it. Make it your own. And I'll make sure that we get our ganache ready too, even if we can't assemble together. I know it's a little ambitious today, isn't it? But again, this is my favorite part of the job. I'm so glad you guys picked Boston Cream Pie. And I'm glad you picked bars and brownies, because bars and brownies is what I basically founded this company on. Is I love bars and brownies. I love how creative you can get with them. That's my favorite thing. Okay. I almost have all of my custard in here. I probably have, let me see, I probably have a 1/4 cup more to go, which might be 2 to 3 more inclusions. I'm doing this about 1.5 tablespoons at a time. And it is getting, it already looks so luscious. Oh my goodness. Okay. And if you are behind and you're worried about it, this video goes live on Instagram and Facebook immediately after, and then it goes up on the site and YouTube the next day. The written recipe won't be up today, but it'll be up by tomorrow. But I'm hoping if you watch this again, it'll be okay. Oh my gosh, all these things happening at once is perfect. There are my Blondies. I'm gonna stop that and give them a check, let you know what they're looking like to me. Ooh, okay, we're almost there. They're still a little bit undercooked in the center, but they are turning golden. And so they need a little bit more time. They've got to shine. So I'm gonna put 5 more, let's do 6 more minutes on the timer as we finish up our buttercream. Okay, so for the buttercream, all of my custard is in. It's already, can you just see how luscious this is? Is that not gorgeous? I'm gonna scrape it just to make sure any custard that was on the sides gets incorporated. And then before we begin beating again, we're going to add in our powdered sugar. If you're into it, try it now. You can try it right now. It almost doesn't taste sweetened in any capacity, which is why I'd recommend a little bit of powdered sugar. 1/4 cup was my recommendation. You can do whatever you'd like. I'm just throwing in 4 tablespoons instead of a 1/4 cup because there was the tablespoon measure right in front of me. And we're going to remove our paddle. She probably already should have. Remove our paddle, and we're going to put the whisk on, and we're just going to beat this. And at this point, I'll pull the recipe back up. I'm also going to add in a tablespoon of vanilla extract, and I'm going to add in salt, because it does actually need some salt. I'd recommend some salt. So what we're doing now is that tablespoon of vanilla extract and that 1/4 teaspoon salt. Alrighty. And seriously, I mean, if you're not a vanilla extract person, maybe you don't. But I really liked it with a lot of vanilla in here. Plus, I wanted to inspire the Boston cream pie vanilla custard as much as possible. And to me, that was get your vanilla in here. Whole tablespoon. All right. Beat it. And maybe start out slow. We have powdered sugar, so remember that. Explosion. And there's something about this with American buttercream too. You really have to beat it so it just doesn't taste like butter, sweetened butter. So we're gonna let this go, and we can start our ganache, which is on my next page. Ganache is so simple. If you've ever been nervous to make ganache, today is your day. This is the big day. All ganaches, let me get all of my buttercream ingredients out of the way. Turn this off and move it while it goes. And I'll tell you about this before I turn my mixer back on. You are only going to get heavy cream steaming on the stovetop, and we're going to pour it over chocolate chips. Literally, that is ganache. Did you know that? Very simple. Ganache is the easiest thing to make. So get a bowl that will fit the chocolate chips and the heavy cream. I'm going to use this one. It's probably too small because apparently I have a thing about that. And I'm using bittersweet chocolate. So you're going to put what in the world is that? Yeah, okay, that's right. 1.5. Sorry. Ganache has very different ratios. If you want a runny ganache, you could do 2-to-1 cream to chocolate. We want a thick ganache that'll set in the fridge, so we're going 2-to-1 chocolate to cream. So 1.5 cups of chocolate chips in a heat-proof bowl, and then 3/4 cup of cream. So get your cream on the stove top, and I'm literally using a small saucepan. And you just want it to warm up. You don't want it boiling. You just want it to steam. I can get my heavy cream open. There we go. And I'm going to put my chocolate chips in this bowl right here. 2-to-1, which means you can mess with that ratio. You can still do 2-to-1, but if you want less ganache, you can do less. So you can do 1/2 cup of cream to 1 cup of chocolate chips. So I've just got my cream in the saucepan here, and I'm just going to warm it up, and I'll show you what happens. Meanwhile, we'll get our buttercream continuing to go. Whipping it up. And I'm using bittersweet because the Blondies are sweet. That's my recommendation, but if you love sweetened chocolate, go for it. Buttercream is looking so luscious, and our Blondies are almost done. Oh, and don't forget to turn your stove on. Now again, if you want to serve this with the chocolate drizzled on the top as you serve it, you can do a really thin ganache, and you can do it right before serving. So you don't have to make your ganache right now if you don't want to. I want to top it with the ganache and allow the ganache to set. Give this a few more. My gosh, we'll turn this mixer off. I'll show you our luscious German buttercream as soon as the Blondies are done. All right, and again, I've got heavy cream on the stove and chocolate chips in a bowl. I'm going to turn my mixer up one more beat. I can't even describe it. It's so luscious. I cannot wait to show you. And if you have questions, let me know. I would recommend keeping these bars in the refrigerator. So they can sit out at room temperature when you're, you know what I mean, when you're eating. They'll last on the counter just fine. I wouldn't say German buttercream is incredibly stable. It is butter, which melts at high temperatures, and then custard. So it's it pipes beautifully. It's thick enough to pipe. It's just in terms of, can it sit out forever? No, I would recommend you put these bars into the fridge if you don't have plans on eating them anytime soon. 10 seconds. Okay. Let's check on our Blondies. Oh my gosh, they're perfect. Okay, so mine, okay, oh, these are perfect, and they're not overcooked, thank goodness. So mine are just beginning to crack. That's a sign that they're done. Golden brown, and they're rising just a little bit. You can sort of see that bump in the middle. So these guys are done. And now you have to let them cool fully before you top them with your buttercream, but you can pop this luscious, holy smokes buttercream into, you can just put the whole bowl into the fridge. And then if you want to loosen it up before you spread it on top, up to you. You can just throw it back in the so you can put it in this bowl in the fridge and then loosen it up by whisking it again in the stand mixer with the whisk attachment. Easy peasy. All right, let me show you this. Oh my, I can't even get over. Is this not luscious and gorgeous? And so this is taking the place of our pastry cream and our Boston cream pie. A custard buttercream. I just think that's just awesome. I'm so happy with it. All right, in the last step here, we're just making our ganache. Let me give my hands a wash, get some of that buttercream off. And I guess I should show you what our final product would look like. Let me move my stand mixer out of the way. And this is, of course, after it's cooled, you can add the buttercream. But I cut some of my bars from my test, and this was my test batch, so I should tell you what I did differently. I decided this ganache was too thick, so I cut it by 1/4. Boston cream pie Blondies, are these not killer? Oh my goodness. It is a thick layer of buttercream. That is for 2 reasons. 1, because I think it's stellar, and 2, the Blondies are so sweet, I wanted something to cut through them a little bit, and it's that just lusciousness of the buttercream. And I've got to take a bite of these. But first, really, I mean, can we talk about, is that not, I'm so excited about these. You can absolutely use flavored chocolate chips if you want, to make a ganache, to make a ganache. I'm not sure about sort of like the weirder chips. I'm trying to think of what is safe. Like, can you make a caramel ganache using caramel chips? I wish I could answer that, and I can't. I really can't. I'm not certain. I'm gonna figure that out and let you know. Anyways, I'll take a bite of these before our get out of here. It's so good. It really is so good. Hold on. I do think it's good, maybe because I use bittersweet chocolate. I think it's good this ganache will be just a little bit thinner in today's. Full bite. We've got our Blondie with chocolate chips to take the place of our yellow cake. We've got a custard buttercream to replace our custard, and then a chocolate ganache instead of a chocolate drizzle. Boston cream pie Blondies. I have to tell you, with some coffee, which I have right here. It's so good. So literally, my cooked Blondie, which I think I overcooked too, which is why I'm stressing don't cook it. Don't overcook it. Blondie, I just spread this ganache all along the top of the pan. Beg your pardon, buttercream all along the top. I made sure that was set and that the ganache was cooled before I ever added the ganache. But you can then use an offset and make gorgeous little streams of ganache. Speaking of which, is our cream heated? I want to make sure we get to this before our hour is up. It's not quite there. I'll turn it up just a little bit. Be wary of burning your cream. But if you don't want to, some alterations you can make. Flavor your buttercream. You do that at the end with your vanilla. If you want to add a different type of chip or no chip to your base. I really was considering using yogurt chips to just add sort of another custard layer. And I chose chocolate because the chocolate drizzle tends to go down the sides of Boston cream pie, which is technically a cake, but they used the same pans at the time Boston cream pie was invented. So it was all pie pans. Isn't that interesting? Anyways, I do recommend a thick layer of custard because just a hint of it isn't enough, especially with something as sturdy as, oh, my cream is just getting there. It's about to boil. Something as sturdy as a Blondie. If your cream does that, just give it a whisk. I mean, a mix. So I would recommend that much buttercream because a Blondie can be overpowering, and so can a dark chocolate ganache. So I chose a less amount of ganache, and literally pour this cream right into your bowl of chocolate, and you're going to let it sit. Just for a minute. Just let it sit for 1 minute. And then when you give it a mix, it's going to be ready to go. So I'll show you that, and then it's probably going to hit the hour and the stream's going to end. So I want to warn you in advance. But I think mix this up how you want. Omit the ganache. But it's a super fun way to enjoy a different Boston cream pie. Because you can have Boston cream pie cupcakes, but that is still cake, and it's still a pastry cream filling, and it's, and it's still chocolate drizzle. So this is just a different way to enjoy it. And if you liked this idea, oh my gosh, you're so sweet. I would love to inspire anyone to bake more. I mean, that's just my goal. I love it so much. If you want to do something like this week again, pick some classics, reinvent them together, I would love to do that. I call this the transformation week, but I feel like it should be the reinvention week. So I'll show you this before the feed cuts. So this is ganache. This is true ganache. This is how you make any ganache. Just give it a very gentle stir. So I just want you to know how easy it is. Ganache to me sounds like this French, crazy thing that only specific people can make. No, it's warmed heavy cream poured over chocolate. And then just stirred. And it looks very thin right now, but it thickens so much as that chocolate melts. And this you just spread right on top. And now, of course, though I have this finished product, I want to show you what it looks like with a thinner layer of ganache. So after this, I'll post some photos. Make sure you see what my second attempt, and this was just my second attempt, at Boston Cream Pie Blondies went. After applying the buttercream to the Blondies, do you stick it in the fridge? I do. Great question. I do. The buttercream sets up really well, but it does need a little bit of time. Even just 20 minutes in the fridge will do it. And you want your ganache to be cooled. So if you are on pace with me, now is not a bad time to get the rest of this ready. Because you can stick your Blondies in the fridge or freezer just to cool a little bit more. The Blondies don't have to be cold. They just have to be room temperature. You just don't want to melt your buttercream as soon as you put it on. So this is what you're going to get to. And if you keep stirring, it smooths out more and more and more, and it's just, oh, can you really see that? It's just luscious. Oh my gosh. And I just got that's so nice of Instagram. I know before I've accidentally let this cut off, Instagram tells you when you have 2 minutes left. Is that not luscious? And this is still warm, so this has to cool. And this ganache will not set up very quickly on the counter. Once you put it in the fridge, though, if you noticed, it's the perfect cut in the fridge. And again, if your Blondies aren't overcooked like mine, they'll be soft and luscious, not so hard. Okay, another bite. What am I doing? If anything, I'm inspired to work with German buttercream more. So let me know how yours go. Let me know if you're flavoring it differently. If you want to do something like this again or not, we can go back to just classic desserts everyone knows with like a little twist. Heck, sometime we could actually make Boston cream pie together. But this was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining in. Don't even say intimidating. No, I love inspiring. Anyone can bake. Seriously, ratatouille. Anyone can bake. Sometimes it just requires patience, I think, is all. And even I'm a pretty impatient person. So thank you so much for joining in, for baking along. This video will go live right away. And if you're behind, you can just catch up by following along. And maybe I'll show you my assembly process too. So thank you so much. I'll see you guys next week.